Hello friends, welcome back, or if you are new here, welcome. Today's video is all about Thanksgiving. I'm spending the day putting together a little pre-Thanksgiving dinner for our family. These dishes and desserts are some of the most requested dishes from our family and friends during the holidays, so I'm going to share them with you. I will be putting all of today's recipes in the description box below, so if I miss something, you should be able to find it down there. Or you can always comment or message me for any other questions too. I'm starting off by getting the desserts ready for our Thanksgiving meal. I am going to be making a Reese's pie with an Oreo crust, so that's what I'm getting ready here. And then I'll also be making a sweet potato pie. And so I am piercing the sweet potatoes and I'm going to get them roasting, and then I'll go back to the Oreo crust for the Reese's pie. I have never made a sweet potato pie before, and I actually had never even heard of one, but apparently they are pretty popular in the South, and I thought it seemed very similar to a pumpkin pie. So my kids and husband, they really enjoy pumpkin pies, so I kind of wanted to test the waters with this one and see if they would also like a sweet potato pie. So that is why I'm doing this one instead of a pumpkin. For the Oreo pie crust, you just need 22, I think I ended up actually doing 24 regular Oreos, not the double stuffed ones. And then you just put them in a baggie, and then I usually will put them also in another plastic bag because this is one of my kids' favorite parts, which they love smashing the Oreos. So I double bag it in case they get a little too rough and sometimes the bag breaks. So when you double bag it, it doesn't usually break. I do usually then put it into like a blender or a food processor if you have one. So I am doing that, just putting the crumbs, because they're larger, into the blender, and then I'll blend them up and they'll be more fine and a lot more of a consistency that you want to make a pie crust. And you can usually find these Oreo pie crusts in like a local grocery store. I believe most of them. I know that you can find them at Walmart, but my husband prefers them homemade, so I just kind of got used to doing that. And my kids always have fun smashing the cookies, so we just kind of stick with our homemade ones. But anyway, so I did 24 regular Oreos. I smashed them up and I put them in the blender to make them fine, and then I put 5 tablespoons of melted butter and mixed it up until it was a good consistency to add to the bottom of a pie pan. Once you get the crumbs to a consistency that you're wanting, you don't want them too dry or too wet, you'll just put them in the bottom of a pie pan, and then I usually try to evenly put it throughout the bottom and up the sides by pressing gently around all the sides and the bottom. And honestly, I feel like it's okay if it's imperfect. I think a lot of people, they try too hard to be perfect about all this, and I feel like some of the beauty is in the imperfections. So it's not perfect. It has its flaws. It's not, 100% even around the edges, but that's okay. Now that the crust is done, I went ahead and put that off to the side, and I am going to start with the peanut butter layer. You will add half a cup of peanut butter, just the smooth kind, not the crunchy kind, to the mixer or just a bowl. You don't have to use the hand mixer if you don't want to. And you will combine that with 1 8-ounce package of softened cream cheese. Then you can mix that until they are well incorporated. After you get that layer mixed well together, you will then add in one package. It was 3.4 ounces of vanilla pudding, just the dry mix. And you'll add in a cup of milk, and then again, just stir to combine them all. This recipe I have made for quite a while. I want to say close to 10 years. My younger brother, this was one of his favorite things that I made. So I often made it for Thanksgiving and then for Christmas for him. He passed away, I think it's about 6 years ago now, and I still try to make it most holidays. It's not necessarily the most traditional thing, but it's more of a sentimental dessert. So I try to make it just kind of for myself because I always made it for him. So I've continued that tradition, and my family just kind of goes to expect that I'll be making it. And I think if I didn't, they would kind of question like, oh, where's the Reese's pie? Because even though I make it every year, that's kind of why people don't really ask for it. But I have cousins and other family that this is one of their favorite things. They love Reese's, and it's a really good take on a Reese's. So it is, although it's not always asked for, it's because they kind of just assume I'm making it anyway. So it's been a family favorite for probably close to 10 years now. This next part I feel like is best to do without the mixer, so I usually just do this part by hand. But you will put in about 1 cup of Cool Whip, and you will just kind of fold it in and mix it like kind of gently. I don't know how else to say that. And the whole, if you've seen Schitt's Creek, that part comes to mind where she's like, fold in the cheese. And David's like, well, how do you fold in the cheese? Anyway, sorry. But you will do just that. You will fold in the Cool Whip and then just gently mix until it's all combined together and it's more of a fluffy consistency. Once you fold in all the Cool Whip, then you'll put it into the pie crust and put it in the fridge to set while you're making the chocolate layer for the top. So if you are making this, do not make the mistake that I did. I bought this bar. I just grabbed it at Aldi and I really paid no attention, but it was unsweetened. So you will need 3 squares of semi-sweet chocolate, and I think I actually did 4 because they were thinner than the usual ones I get. But I did not actually even notice that it was unsweetened until I went to do a taste test. I was like, oh my gosh, why is it so bitter? So that was my indication, and so I remedied it by just adding sugar to it until it was sweet. But you'll go ahead and you'll put the 3 squares of chocolate into the rest of the Cool Whip, and I usually just put it right into the container, and you will melt it in the microwave until it's all melted and kind of like a liquidy consistency, and then you'll just spread it over top, Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Get it as evenly as possible. You can cover the whole sides if you would like, or you don't have to. Just base it on what you want. There's no reason to be perfect about any of it. The last part is completely optional. I do it because I'm a bit extra at times and I just think it looks pretty. So I will melt about a tablespoon of peanut butter and then I will drizzle it over the top. Again, you do not have to do that. It's just something that I like to do because I think it looks cute. I am moving on to making the sweet potato pie now. So this is just a normal pie crust, and I'm rolling it out, and then I'm gonna put it into the pie pan. I have not grown up making pies. My grandmother is known for making the pies in the family, and I think most of her kids also know how to make the pies. And I have a couple cousins that were very close to her that would also spend time making pies with her over like the holidays and stuff. We just moved here though from the Chicago area, so we were like 10 hours away, and we did not have that time to be able to make pies and desserts and stuff with my grandmother. So I am still very new at pie making. It also does not help that I do not like pretty much every kind of pie. There's a couple, like my grandmother makes a chocolate pie that I am okay with, but I still don't even usually eat. So I don't really know what I'm doing necessarily when it comes to making pies. It's all kind of new to me, but I like making them, so I usually try every single year. And my kids really love pies too, so I don't know, I just think it's fun. Maybe that's why my grandma, she has so many that she makes. I mean, she brings probably close to 10 pies every Thanksgiving. So she has done it for years and she's very used to it. And I am not at all. So I am trying my best, but you know, it is what it is. It's about taste, right? But so I'm learning as I go. And I even asked my daughter when I was making this pie crust, I'm like, how do you make like the sides pretty? And so because she likes watching a lot of like the baking shows and the holiday baking shows. So she was also helping me do the pie crust. I am brushing egg wash all along the sides is what I always did, but I recently just watched someone and she did the whole pie crust. So I tried that and it worked out really well. I brushed it along the entire pie crust, and then I did put pie shields along the top, and I used parchment paper in the bottom with beans so the pie crust did not rise. That was something that I had to Google because I did not know that that was a thing. But anyway, it turned out very successful. This was not my first pie crust, but I feel like I don't make them nearly as often, so it almost feels like every time I make it, it's a new experience for me. Now the sweet potatoes have roasted and cooled down, and they're easy enough to handle at this point. So you will scoop out the insides, and it's said to blend them, but I did not need to do that. It was a really great consistency, so I just kind of mashed them with a fork, and there was no clumps or anything like that. So you need about 2 cups of sweet potatoes that are mashed. And then it was a half a cup of softened butter. You'll put in 1 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk. One thing that I thought was interesting was it did a teaspoon of orange zest. I had not heard of that, and I'm not sure. I've never made a pumpkin pie. I've seen several of them being done, but I didn't know that they actually did zest of anything, so maybe that's just for sweet potato pies. If you know, please let me know in the comments below, because I thought that was interesting. It smelled wonderful. And then you will do 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, a half a teaspoon of nutmeg, a quarter of a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon vanilla, 2 eggs that are lightly beaten, and then you just pour that into your pie crust that you baked beforehand to brown. Again, I know it's a lot to follow while you're watching the video, so if there are any recipes that you're interested in making, I will be putting all of them from today in the description box below. After everyone tasted this pie, the consensus was that they still prefer the pumpkin pie, but it was very similar to the pumpkin pie. Although I love all the traditional things for the holidays, I still like bringing like that one dish that is different. So I think this is still a very good option if you're not used to sweet potato pie. It's a good little thing, you know, it's close enough to the traditional things where you can get by, but it's just different enough to kind of mix it up a bit. So I like bringing the more traditional things that people expect, but then also throwing in one of these things just so they could try it out, and you never know, it could be the next tradition for Thanksgiving for you to bring. So I think this is a very good option, although my family personally liked the pumpkin a little better, but this is a great other option. At this point, my kids were ready for lunch, and they kind of kept coming into the kitchen and were like, "Are we going to eat? It smells amazing in here. Can we eat?" So, I'm doing all this cooking for dinner tonight. So now that it's lunchtime, I went ahead and I made these sliders for them for lunchtime. My family has done these sliders for quite a while, several years now, and they are great for like lunches. But if you do Thanksgiving like dinner pretty late, my family does it pretty early, actually about 2 or 3, sometimes 4. But if you are doing all that cooking all that day and you're not eating Thanksgiving dinner until dinner time, this is a great option for lunch, more like an appetizer type of thing. We usually will make them a lot of times for the Friday after Thanksgiving. It's just after you have been cooking and in the kitchen all of Thursday, it is so nice to have something very, very easy that everybody enjoys the next day. And then we often pair these sliders with like soup or chili or something like that. We'll have other people that maybe weren't cooking on Thursday. They'll bring a crock pot of stuff, and then we'll serve these sliders because they come together so quick and easy, and majority of people like them. If you saw my recent grocery haul, I was talking about these sliders during that grocery haul, and I mentioned how I got the off-brand of the Hawaiian rolls, and I have not done that before. This was the first time, but they were significantly cheaper, like half the price than the Hawaiian rolls, and I wasn't sure if I was going to regret using the off-brand or not, but I went ahead and I got the off-brand anyway to try. So if you saw that video and you're wondering, the off-brand was just as good. They might have been a little smaller than the actual Hawaiian rolls in the store, but maybe not by much. But taste and everything, they worked out perfectly. There was no issue. It was almost an identical sandwich. So if you're wondering that and you're trying to cut back, even if it's, half the price, a couple bucks, these were worth that switch. For the sliders, I just took 2 packs of the Hawaiian rolls and I cut them in half, and then I put the bottom into a pan, and then I just layered, I think I did turkey, but you can do ham, really any meat. People make these sliders out of everything these days. They even do like cheeseburgers. So I did turkey, but I know that we do ham a lot too. And then it calls for Swiss cheese, but I do not like Swiss cheese, so I always do provolone instead. You'll just layer provolone on top of whatever deli meat you chose, and then you will put the tops all on the sandwiches, and I'm making a sauce. You can get all those ingredients in the description box below, and then you'll just pour the sauce over top. I do not cut individual sandwiches. When they're done, I'll go ahead and just take like a metal spatula and cut the sandwiches out that way. It's so much easier, and that way you're not, trying to line up little buns with the bottoms and stuff. It's just significantly easier. But the sauce will kind of soak into the bread, and you'll bake that until they start to brown and serve them right away. As you can see, the little hands have started to come into the kitchen. My little boys both wore matching turkey Thanksgiving shirts. So they thought it was so festive, and everybody was kind of excited for pre-Thanksgiving. So he's kind of in there just wondering what I'm doing. He usually likes to be a part of things. And so he was watching me make the pie, and he did ask to help pour the filling in, but I was kind of unsure with the pie shield and holding. I was just like, oh, maybe I'll just do this one. You can help with the next one. After lunch, the boys joined me in the kitchen. So while I was baking and cooking and stuff, they were drawing. They do this, and my kids are homeschooled. So if you're new here, my kids do school at home. But when my older 2 kids were in public school, they did like the disguising the turkey, where you have to make the turkey into something else in order to disguise it so he's not chosen and eaten for Thanksgiving. So that's what they were doing there. It was super cute. They ended up doing so many turkeys, over 10. They loved it. So that's what they were doing while I was in the kitchen. And then my older 2, for part of the day, were, at least most of the morning, they were in there doing school work in the other room. If you're wondering what I'm doing, this is the bacon wrapped smokies. We often do these for an appetizer before Thanksgiving meal, and then we also do it at Christmas, and it is literally that. You're not gonna, I'll put the recipe down below, but it's the simplest thing. You just take a package of smokies. We actually usually have to buy a couple packages when we're doing Thanksgiving or Christmas because we have so many people. And you'll cut the bacon into like thirds, I don't think quarters, but thirds, and you will wrap the one piece around a smoky, and then you'll layer them all in here. You can use toothpicks. A lot of the times when there's more people, I'll use toothpicks, and you'll just put a toothpick into each one. Generally, the bacon will stay there though. And then you will top each one with just like a pile of brown sugar, and then you'll bake it, and it kind of caramelizes. It's an interesting dish, but it is really, really good. So you can also do, instead of smokies, you can do water chestnuts, and that is really, really good too. But my stepdad years ago, I don't know where he saw it, but one time right before Thanksgiving, he's like, oh, we should try this, and we did, and that's something now we have every single year. And that is one of the first appetizers that is gone quickly. It is one of the first ones gone. So it is truly one of our family favorites. And my daughter, she loves the water chestnuts, and I have a lot of friends that like the water chestnuts. So if you're looking for a good crunch, that is a great one. For this sweet potato pie, they said that there was a ton of options for toppings. One of them was Cool Whip, like the traditional pumpkin pie. They also said you could do vanilla ice cream. And then there was to broil marshmallows on the top. So that's what I went ahead and did. It was kind of like a take on a sweet potato casserole, in my opinion. But I broiled them on top, and they did get a little toasted, but lucky for me, my family actually does not mind extra toasted marshmallows. Can you spy the bumblebees that Theo was making? So it was kind of funny because he was supposed to be, making turkeys, and he was for the most part. And he said he was going to disguise one of the turkeys as a bumblebee. And then after that, all he was making was bumblebees. So then he was disguising the bumblebees, and even one of the bumblebees he disguised as a turkey. So I just thought it was so funny. But yeah, they ended up doing so many of those. They loved that whole thing. Another favorite of ours to do for the holidays is these sausage stuffing balls. I had these a couple years ago. I had a friend before we moved down here that made these, and I was like, wow, I never even thought of this. And so I started making these shortly after I had tried them from a friend. And I have not actually had to make them the last couple of years, because I made them like 2 or 3 years ago, and the family members that were at Thanksgiving, they loved them. They thought they were incredible. So they started making them, and now they often bring them to almost every get together we have. They do game nights and they'll serve these. So they have been a huge hit in my family. But this year I'm making them. My boys really, really love them, Lincoln in particular. So the recipe that I use it's 1 pound of ground breakfast sausage, and it's uncooked, and you put that into a bowl, and then you do 6 ounces or a 6-ounce box of stuffing. You can do whatever flavor. I believe I did chicken flavored, and then about 2 cups of shredded cheddar cheese, and then about a half a cup of chicken broth. Now I say about because you can always add in more cheese if you would like, or less. I felt like 2 cups was a really good amount. And then for the chicken broth, you don't want them too wet, So kind of just do about a half a cup, and if you think it needs more, then you can add more. That's what I did at least, but you'll just mix all that together. The recipe that I originally got, it does include 8 slices of diced bacon into this. I've never done that, but I'm sure it's good. And then anyway, you will combine all the ingredients into a large bowl, form them into balls. I do about like meatball size, and then I put them onto a baking dish and baked until they were done on the inside, which didn't really take very long. They kind of brown and were easy enough to tell when they were done. It's similar to like a meatball. So for this next recipe, I feel like it is always a little like controversial. Like people do not seem to like cauliflower, and I think I will forever be a cauliflower pusher because I think if you eat it in like the correct ways, you cook it in different ways, it's very good. So I think people that don't like cauliflower are just not cooking it correctly. So anytime I make this, we call it a breaded cauliflower. Every time I make this, everybody usually loves it that will actually try it. But this was a request from my mom. She wanted the breaded cauliflower. I like doing this a lot for Christmas too, because I don't like serving all the same stuff from Thanksgiving a month later at Christmas. So I will a lot of times make this as like a Christmas dish. So I got this dish from my mother-in-law years ago, but I always forget. I never wrote the recipe down because I'm wonderful at not writing recipes down. But I forgot if you were supposed to cook the cauliflower before or not. I thought you were supposed to. I ended up not doing that here, and how I did it ended up being great still. So usually you will cut up the cauliflower into florets, and then she boils them before. I usually will bake them in the oven just until they're tender. You don't want to overcook them. And then once they are cooled down and you can handle them, you will smash club crackers or Ritz. Again, you can use a food processor or a blender, anything you have. I did not want to get my blender out again because I had already put it away. So I went ahead and just smashed it by hand, and it worked out just fine. Then you will add in grated Parmesan, onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper. You'll mix that up, and then you will melt. I have to double check. I can't remember off the top of my head, but and again, I'll put it all in the description box below, but you'll melt butter into a bowl, and I want to say it was half a cup of butter, and then you will dip the florets into the butter completely, coat them, and then you will roll them into this cracker mixture. Now you kind of have to press the cracker mixture onto the florets, so you'll see me doing that. And then you'll put them in a baking dish and bake them until they start to brown, and it's a wonderful dish. My family always enjoys it, but again, I'm a cauliflower pusher, so there are those people that do not like cauliflower, but I highly suggest giving this dish a chance. And if you did forget, like I did in this video, to cook the cauliflower before, what I did was I just breaded it and everything, and then I put it in the pan just how you're supposed to do. And then I covered it with foil for the first portion of cooking it. You'll cook it for about 40 minutes. And so for probably the first half, if not a little longer, you will cover it in foil, and it will get tender and cook that way. And then for the last 10-15 minutes, you'll take the foil off, for it to get crispy, and it turned out just as good. My boys were cracking me up with this chicken. I guess they had never seen me do a whole chicken before. So I do them quite often, but I guess they had never seen it. So it was kind of funny. I included that footage here of them asking me questions. They both came in and were just like, what is going on? Neck. The butt's over here.
That's the butt?
Yeah.
Oh, I can see it. It's brain.
You can see its brain?
Yeah.
I'm preparing this chicken like I usually do if I were to make a turkey. There's a little bit of differences, but I usually will just do several pats of butter. When I'm doing a turkey, I'll actually put it under the skin up top and then also on top. And then I will dice up apples and I put them inside. I'll put the butter inside. I like to do thyme or rosemary, garlic, salt, pepper. I keep it very simple, but it's very good and very juicy, flavorful with the butter. And by this point, my boys have established where the neck and where the butt part of the chicken were. So that was a big discussion at this point. You'll see Theo pointing in just a minute and telling Lincoln about it. And then when I got to the part where you're putting the apples and the butter inside of the chicken, that kind of pushed them over the fence. They were like, wait, what are you doing?
turkey.
Can't see it?
This turkey smells yummy. It's actually chicken. Mom, is this a turkey?
No, it's a chicken.
It looks like a turkey. Why are you putting apples up its butt? Why are you putting apples up its butt? Now we're gonna see apples and butter in there.
I'm now moving on to what is called a Swedish apple pie. It was a recipe that I have not been making for very long, and I have shared it before, so I'm not going to go into the details. I will put the recipe in the description box below with the others, but I started making this not that long ago because I wanted to make an apple pie. My oldest son, he loves apple pies. He loves really any kind of pie. And so I wanted to I like to use up all of our ingredients before we go grocery shopping. That way we can make sure none of the food gets wasted. And we had a bunch of apples to use, so I wanted to use those a couple weeks ago when I first made this recipe. But we didn't have, I don't think we really had butter or something. So, or at least we didn't have enough to do like a pie crust. So I ended up finding a recipe online that it was almost like a cake-like, I say cake, but it's kind of like a mixture between a cake and a pie crust. And it was super simple. It had barely any ingredients, and it was something just very quick that I was able to throw together. This recipe is simple enough that it's very traditional in a sense, but also not really. My family, I don't think, has ever had this, but it's very close to like an apple pie. So I'm going to make this for our family Thanksgiving, on Thanksgiving, because I think a lot of my family will appreciate it. And I know my kids and my husband, they really enjoy this. My son, he likes to put a scoop of vanilla ice cream on it. He'll warm it like a slice in the microwave, and then he'll put a slice of vanilla ice cream and he tops it with a caramel drizzle. And it's not really, I don't eat it, but he says it's wonderful. It's like one of his new favorites. So I think I'm going to make this for Thanksgiving also, and because it's so easy and it comes together so quickly, I went ahead and I made one this evening for our pre-Thanksgiving dinner too. If you're curious about the Christmas music I have in this video, I was so excited I couldn't help myself, and I'm always listening to music. A lot of times I have to do a voiceover on my videos because we usually have music. I have such bad like anxiety problems and stuff, especially after our son passed away. It's definitely gotten worse. So I find that listening to music is always very helpful for me. So we usually always have music playing somewhere in the house, and definitely always while I'm cooking. So unfortunately, that is why you don't usually get to hear the sounds of, the kids running around or the kitchen, sounds, because it's all copyrighted stuff. So I can't have them in my videos. But I was listening to Christmas music the whole time this day. So I wanted to also include some Christmas music in the video just to kind of be festive. And I'm also very excited. I think we're going to do our Christmas tree this coming week. So I think next week we'll do like a Christmas video. I usually try to hold off until about Thanksgiving-ish. I want to say I used to, years ago, only do the Christmas tree like the weekend after Thanksgiving. But since moving here, we've kind of moved it up a little for other reasons. A lot of times we'll host around Thanksgiving. We don't host for Thanksgiving, but we host sometimes the Friday after, or, you know, right around that time. So I like to have it up. Last year we did it earlier because we were made aware right before that our son was going to have a surgery right after Christmas, and we just wanted to get all of that out of the way and be able to have as much time, you know, enjoying that time with him. So we did it earlier last year. I think we did it about the same time, like the week before Thanksgiving, and I think we're going to go ahead and do that again this year. So if we do that in the coming days, I will of course tape it, and I'll share it with you in our video next week if I end up doing it this week. But anyway, that is all I have for you today. The next couple clips will be from our whole meal put together, so you can see kind of just everything. I also did serve like a sauteed green bean. But thank you so much for spending the day with me and cooking for our Thanksgiving meal, our pre-Thanksgiving dinner. But I will see you in the next one. Bye.